And so far, what do you think you've contributed so
Right.
far to the industry?
Actually, IBPAP was born 10 years ago. We're
Mhm.
celebrating our 10th year this year.
Mhm.
The industry, the BPO industry in the Philippines started in about 98, 99.
Mm.
And around 2001, there was some organizations that were being formed already. So there was what was called Outsource Philippines.
Mm.
And then there was another group called Contact Center Federation.
Mm.
So there were two different groups.
Are they still alive?
No, actually what happened was the two merged to become BPAP. So initially it was known as BPAP without the I, and it was Business Processing Association of the Philippines. So the two merged in 2004 to become a single organization called BPAP. And the reason why they merged was because at that point, it was seen that we can't have separate organizations, we need to have only one. And there was a shared vision at that early stage of how do we maximize the opportunity so that we can generate jobs in the Philippines, because this is a job generator. So that was the what do you call this? The genesis of the whole thing. And immediately after, so in 2004, 2005, it was really a one-man operation. I mean, from a full-time perspective, so we had one full-time executive director. Then the rest of the board members were basically volunteers from the companies, from the member companies. And then in 2006, that's when, again, the members all decided we have to be really serious about this. So we made it into, we hired a full-time CEO, and also at the same time, the members passed the hat, contributed money, and we were able to raise enough money to hire McKinsey to create the IT BPO roadmap. So we've created our first roadmap in 2006. It was a roadmap 2010, so that's what we called it, the roadmap 2010. Basically identifying where do we want to take this industry up to 2010, what are the possible challenges, what are the possible roadblocks, and what are the things that we need to put in place as an industry in order to achieve our aspirations. We have since updated that. We now have Roadmap 2016. So again, we have our, so what does Roadmap 2016 say? Our target is by 2016, we would have 1.3 million direct employment, generating $25 billion for the Philippine economy. That's our aspiration. So we've identified that already.
And for the roadmap 2010, what were the goals? Did you meet them?
No. I'm not, to be perfectly honest, I don't even remember some of those numbers already, but we did not necessarily meet a lot of them because remember there was an economic crisis, there were so many things that happened, right? That affected that whole thing. And so honestly I don't even remember anymore. Because essentially it was like, okay, that happened, let's set it aside, let's move forward and focus on what we need to focus on. I think part of the 2016 roadmap also took that into consideration now. We were very sensitive and conscious about what are the external factors that can affect our forecasts and our projections, and how do we balance it out. So for example, the easiest external factor that we cannot change or control is exchange rate. Not Philippine dollar exchange rate. But who's our biggest competition in this marketplace? India. The Indian rupee versus the US dollar. So for example, this time last year we were actually getting panicky. Because the peso was at 40 to a dollar. The Indian rupee went to 68 to a dollar. It depreciated. So just on a pure exchange rate basis alone, India was cheaper by 25%. Right? So we can, the central bank, the Department of Finance, the government can do something to manage the Philippine US dollar exchange rate, as any good economist will do. But we have no control over India. So we factored some of those things, and so that our projections are both more realistic and will take into consideration uncontrollables.
And then, of course, the forming an organization, it's also about like trying to understand what are the best practices for the industry.
Right.
And so far, what are the best practices that you've identified?
Without, well, not necessarily what are the best practices, but let me explain to you how we're structured, right? So we have the IBPAP. Okay. So by the way, so the name changed last year. We now added the I because that's now IT Business Process Association of the Philippines, because we wanted to put a focus on the role of IT. Because every time you say business processing, the mindset right is call center. But it's not just limited to call center, right? So under IBPAP, I have 5 partner associations. So there's the CCAP, or the Contact Center Association of the Philippines. That's the voice space. Those are the noisy guys in the next room. So, by the all the partner associations, except for CCAP, because they have their own, hold office here as well. So that's why so I have the Philippine Software Industry Association, PSIA. So that would be IT and software. We have the Healthcare Information Management Outsourcing Association of the Philippines, or HIMOA. So that's for the healthcare space. That's the group that's meeting in the other room, the third room, down the hall. We have the Animation Council of the Philippines, or ACPI. We have the Game Developers Association of the Philippines. So we are an umbrella organization also. So because what we've done is, for specific interests, there are some associations. Aside from that, we have what we call committees or councils. So we have the Legislative Council, for example, so all of these councils are populated by members who volunteer to be part of the councils. So the Legislative Council basically looks at what are the laws that are in place today or being filed in the Senate and into Congress, which will impact our industry. Therefore, we evaluate, we look at it, and we find out, okay, what should we say? What should our position be? Right? We have the HR Champion Circle. So the HR Champion Circle are the HR directors and managers of the different members. So they look at labor issues. We work very closely with the Department of Labor. We look after the wellness of our employees. And then we have the Quality Council. So this would be, quality is a very important element of our industry. So these are the quality managers of our industry. And then we have the Membership Committee. So these are the ones that look after what are the things that the members need. And then we come up with programs to address that. So we have multiple members. So from a share of best practices, the first element, the councils allow all the different managers from the different companies to discuss and compare notes and identify what common areas. If there's one best practice that I can share with you, it would be what we've done lately in terms of talent development. We always say this: talent is the most critical part of our industry. We don't have a product. Our product are our people. So the challenge that we have is that we would have some graduates, let's say from ABC University, there will be graduates that will come in, and then let's say very few of them get hired, the rest fail. In the past, what would happen is we'd go to the school and we'd say, your graduates are not good enough. And the school will now say, okay, they're not good enough, how? And we had no answer, right? So as an industry, we worked together. We identified what is it that we're looking for from the college graduates? What competencies were we looking for? And then we developed with another company an assessment tool. We now call it GCAT, Global GCAT. We call it, that's the Global Competitiveness Assessment Test. So basically, we give that to the school, to the students of a school, for example, And then we also gave that to some BPO workers. And then we compared the grades of the BPO workers and the grades of the students. So if there is a gap, if the grades of the students are much lower than the grades of the BPO workers, then it allows us to tell the school, okay, for this particular competency, you need to improve your education. And then you go to the next competency, let's say they did very well, then okay, whatever you're doing right now, continue, don't change that, and so forth and so on. So it allowed us to narrow it down and identify.
So what were those key things?
For example, from a communication perspective, business communication. You speak English, but every time the conversation now becomes a business discussion, the first language influence comes in. You start, you start talking in Taglish without even realizing it. You're saying ano, right? Because you panic, right? Because it's not your first language. Another one is critical thinking. We need to improve the critical thinking skills of our graduates today. So those are just two of those examples. And then, but we said, okay, let's not stop there. How else can we do this? Because the problem that, well, it's the nature of the educational system. The schools cannot change their curriculum overnight. There are certain rules that they have to follow from a CHED perspective, right? So instead of waiting for that to happen, what we did was, again, with the members of the industry and with the academe, volunteers from the academe, we actually developed a courseware that will address those competencies that we were just talking about. And it became a 21-unit minor. We now call it Service Management Program, or SMP.
Service Management
Program. So, and then
how
in Feb,
different is this versus communications?
no, communication is one of the subjects. It's one of the subjects in SMP. Critical thinking is one of the subjects in SMP. So what we did was we actually submitted this to CHED. And in February of last year, CHED accredited it to be offered in colleges and universities. So you can actually graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, minor in Service Management. Okay. And what does this do?
Has this been adopted?
No, so well, actually,
Just-
no. Here's the, so we first piloted it across a couple of schools. At the end of the, by the way, at the end of part of the 21 units, the tail end is 600 hours of internship with a BPO company. So the pilot students who went through this are actually now interning with a BPO company. Okay, and the results so far seem to be very, very good. Well, the company that they
What are the schools?
I-
Bawal
yeah,
ba?
well, no, because they were the pilot schools, yeah, so I can't
Okay.
mention it. But the interesting
But
thing
around
about
how
it,
many schools?
3 schools.
3 schools.
Yep. So,
And around how many students?
no, this is very, very few. Pilot lang talaga to. I think only about 10 of them.
10.
Yeah. But the thing is, they're now, and the company that's taking them in on an internship program is basically saying, we'd like to hire them permanently. Right? So, some level of success in the pilot. March of last year, this time last year, CHED called us again and said, here's 125 million pesos. Have you ever seen a check that says 125 million? I haven't. No, but they basically gave it to us and said, could you please roll it out across 17 state universities and colleges? So we're now in the process of going to several, so we started with Cavite State University, for example. Then we went to Laguna Polytechnic State University and PUP in Manila. Those were the first 3. We started by teaching the teachers who will teach this to their students. The target is by the end of this year, we would have covered all 17 colleges. We would have trained over 700 teachers. And we will have 20,000 students enrolled in the subjects. So we're now building the pipeline for the future. And that's sharing of best practices, because really the industry all came together and talked about their experiences and what do we need collectively as a solution. And we're proud of this because this is a perfect example of private-public sector partnership. Because instead of just sitting back and saying, "Ay, we have a problem," And then, oh, Mr. Government, can you do something about our problem? Because if you think about it, we were the best persons to also find the solution. Because we are on the ground, we see the problem every day. So by working together as an industry to find the solution, which was SMP, and then showing it to the government, saying, "Oh, Mr. Government, this was our problem. This is our solution. Do you like it?" The government liked it so much to say, "Okay, we'll provide you with some funding to get things moving." Right. So I think that's a great partnership.
Well, I'm curious about this course. I mean, what's it like? I mean, how does it train you? Specific?
It's specific subjects. It's 21 units that you take over 2-year period. So for example, there is a simple na lang muna. BPO 101.
May BPO
Yeah, we have BPO 101, BPO 102.
Oh, okay.
You have 3-unit subjects of BPO alone. Because it goes back to that. It's understanding the industry. What we're trying to develop here kasi is, what is one of the challenges of the Philippines? And actually a lot of countries also, but in the Philippines it's pretty apparent. It is job skills mismatch. You have so many students taking up a particular course, but there are no jobs waiting for them at the end of the line. And then you have certain jobs that can't be filled, and when you look at the students, you can't find any students taking up those courses, right? So what we're trying to do is bridge that job skills mismatch by providing additional education so that they know that this is where they're going to go to after they graduate. They have an understanding of what the industry is going to be all about. Then of course, for example, so there's a business communication, 3 units in business communication. So it's not grammar, it is not. It's not, you know, but believe it or not, there are certain things that you have to go back to basics. Because people just don't realize that they're actually making a mistake when they're saying it. So that's the course where. So, I mean, you know, one of these days, siguro after summer, it would be nice, we'd like to invite you, maybe we could go to, Jermaine can take you to CABSU, Cavite State University.
Yeah, to
Because it's
see
new, but
what's it
see it in
like,
action,
right?
talk to the teachers, talk to the students, because it is, the last time I spoke to the CABSU people, they were so excited about it. You just came from which school?
Same school, CABSU.
You just came from CABSU,
Yes,
was it, right? So
yes.
they're so excited about
And
it.
even the local government, I got to meet with the mayor. Yeah, no, what do you call this?
Which city ba ang Cavite State? Which town?
I'm not sure what town exactly. But the local government is going to now arrange for a small forum with the mga mayors and local government officials so we can make a presentation so they'd be totally aware of what because they're identified as one of the next wave cities.
Right, correct.
So,
Metro Cavite.
yeah, so they're excited about it, and so they'd like to find out a little bit more detail
Yeah.
in partnership with CAP.